All right, we're live. All right, it was so good to see you again. Thank you for stopping by our dinner at RSA. It was so great to see you and to meet your wife. I know I don't think you need any introduction. You are such a force of nature in the industry, and people know who you are. But maybe if you can say a few words about your current role at CYE and your role previously as a chief security architect at Walmart, maybe just say a
Mhm.
few words.
Yeah, so let's see, Ira Winkler, currently CISO over at CY Security,
Mhm.
CISEC.com for those people who care. And we do, I don't want to say it's not, it basically, I describe it as we generally help CISOs to understand the budgets they need and then to deserve the budgets they need and leave it at that. Previously, my roles included chief security architect at Walmart, chief security strategist at HP. I was CISO for one or two times, started and sold a couple of companies as well along the way.
Mhm.
And currently, my passion project is CruiseCon, which is essentially exactly what it sounds like, a cyber security conference on a cruise ship, with the next one being CruiseCon West, October 2nd through 6th, going out of LA.
Awesome. Tell me more. What was the genesis of the idea?
So the genesis, and we were speaking about this a little beforehand, because frankly, I've been going to cybersecurity conferences for more than 30 years now, literally going more than 30 years.
Well,
Back
you
in,
started when you were 13, right?
I was a young lad. But but what happened was back then, I'd go to RSA, it was small events. We'd get together, we'd talk, we would be able to like hang out at the bars and everything like that. Now, for example, and I'm not just picking on RSA, but what's happened over the years at all these major events, and especially RSA's most iconic Black Hat, almost identical to this situation with DEF CON following suit and everything, it's become a caste system where, for example, if you're a really, really cool kid, you go to the Evolution Equity President's Dinner, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong, it's awesome. You have Night Dragon's side event. You have Piper Sandler this year that showed up. You have American Growth Capital event. And a lot of these events, when I was chief security architect at Walmart, I had the golden ticket if I wanted it. I could walk into any event and, it would be frowned upon. I'd be quite the asshole for doing it, but I'm here from Walmart. Let me in. And they'd be like, sure. I'm like, no, that's like, and what's happened at RSA is essentially that you have this major event where they put all this effort to bringing people together, and now all these people are going to these side events. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people going out, taking you on a boat, enjoying the San Francisco skyline or whatever
Mhm.
at, in the evening, but you don't realize what you're missing till you know what you're missing. And so, for example, getting together with like the CISOs of Fortune 100 companies is nice. These are good people who you would never meet otherwise. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking around these events and everything. And like you go to these events, you have your event. I'm not trying to downplay your event, but you're kind of like in the middle. You're going to get some of the top CISOs out there, but for the most part, they're going to, again, the president's dinner where real a president shows up, and then you have all these people who are not necessarily in theory as important as everyone else. And the problem is, I don't like that. When I was chief security architect at Walmart, I get to sit around with really cool people, get incredible content. But really, the more important thing was we were there networking together and developing great relationships. And then what happened is I'm like, how can I democratize this? And I love cruises. I'm not going to lie, I love cruises. And CruiseCon is a way for me to, another excuse to go on a cruise.
Mhm.
But I noticed they had a conference center there. And then I'm like, why don't we hold these events, these A-list events with A-list content, and bring anybody who wants to come together, not just by invite only and only if you're one of the super coolest cool kids, but let's have everybody who wants to that can get there come together. So I brought CruiseCon together to bring in A-list content, which it is,
Mhm.
put it in an environment that is incredibly conducive to networking. And the first event, people seem to have create lifelong relationships through the WhatsApp groups, the signal channels, and everything. And then at the same time, anybody could come. There is a cost to it. I can't give it away,
Hmm.
but it's an incredibly small cost. I mean, we're cheaper than the conference, all in hotel, food, entry fee is cheaper than the RSA admission ticket itself.
Mm.
So, and that was intentional because again, the goal is to bring people together in a way that's affordable, where you have a SOC analyst at a bar who came over to me and said, yeah, I was talking to this guy. And then you introduced him this, and that's Jairo, the CISO from Royal Caribbean. And he's like a really cool guy. And I wouldn't, it's like, yeah, he is. And it's like, and the guys, I'd never get to meet him anywhere else. And that's the type of environment, so that you get this networking, you get this intimacy together. So you may be able to find mentors. You will have this interaction with people you can't get elsewhere. Sorry, I could go on for a while about this, but
Oh, no,
that
no, I think
essentially is.
it's a very valid point. I just want to kind of double click on something that you said. You said cool kids and important people, and it sounds like it's a bit tongue in cheek from the vendor perspective. Someone who's cool is someone who buys a lot of cybersecurity. Therefore, I see dollar signs next to that person's name. Therefore,
Mhm.
I want to kind of host them and I want to entertain them. But if all of a sudden that person is no longer there, then I'm next. Okay,
Yeah,
next.
I
Go to
think you're
the next
referring,
news person.
yeah,
So go
sorry,
ahead.
I don't want to interrupt, but you're referring to the comment I made at your dinner a couple weeks ago,
Hmm.
where I referred to PIPs, VIPs,
Exactly.
and PIPs. And frankly, I stole this term from David Stender. David used to be the CISO of the IRS.
Hmm.
He then moved on to be CISO of M&T Bank, which is one of the top 20 banks in the US, so really notable.
Hmm.
And one day we were talking, because I don't care who people are or who they were. I just care about them as a person. And I've stayed in touch with David throughout his whole career. And what happened was, I was talking to David, and David's like, yeah, I went from being a VIP to a PIP, very important person to a previously important person. It's like before, people were inviting me to come on this trip where they would pay for me to fly to a Mexican resort, and now the same vendor won't even give me a free expo pass to RSA. That's free, almost free to them.
Hmm.
And it's like, yeah. And there's like this inherent, like, I don't want to say, and this isn't a caste system. This is just people being rude to me, where like a lot of people, like we were talking to Phil at your event as well, where
Hmm.
Phil really appreciated, Phil was CISO of a very large organization. Now he's CISO of a good, fine fintech company that's growing rapidly as well. And Phil had the same thing, where people, vendors wouldn't give him the time of day. And he valued the people that kept in touch with him no matter who he's with.
Absolutely.
Because I could tell you, even to this day, like a lot, like you said, a lot of people know me regardless of whether I'm chief security architect at Walmart or anything else. There are, however, people, I will tell you, I will remember who they are, not because they were wonderful, but because of the opposite, of people who were nothing but lovely to me while I was chief security architect at Walmart, and they wanted billions of dollars in sales. But now, after that, like, I did a webcast with someone, and all of a sudden, after they found out I left, oh yeah, there was a problem with the audio. And it's like,
Really.
"Oh, yeah, well, we'll re-record." I'm like, okay, sure, just send your person, let me know, I'll schedule it. Yeah, never heard from them again. I will remember this person when I am in another VVVIP position.
It's such a short-sighted way of dealing with people. It's just so transactional and so short-term, and eventually you'll run out of people. And it's a small. I mean, it's a big world, but such a small industry. Everyone knows everyone else, and the word gets around. So it's so
Yeah,
myopic and short-sighted to treat people like this. And
I'm
it's interesting that you but kind of it seems like this CruiseCon idea is this anti-mainstream uh,
Hmm.
conference where, as you said, you're democratizing the space, but just kind of to put some of the boundaries around it, so anyone can attend. Implied. I assume it's implied that's practitioners only, right? So it's not advisors, consultants.
Oh no, anybody, literally anybody can attend. I mean, you could sign up if you're on the vendor side and you're
Hmm.
not a sponsor. And I'm not. And let me say, sponsors are important to any event to add the quality experience to it. As an
Hmm.
example, we
Hmm.
had, what was it, Threat Locker. They took out private cabanas on the last cruise con for anybody who wanted to come, as an example.
Hmm.
But if you're a vendor, you can come, you can shake hands and everything, but if you can't blatant market if you're not a sponsor,
Right.
because I mean, people are all, we just want awesome people who are there to experience. And frankly, if you are going to be, and it doesn't sound good, but it is good. If you're going to be trapped on a cruise ship with people, and believe me, if I was going to be trapped anywhere, it would be on a cruise ship, especially the large ones we use. If you're going to be trapped on a cruise ship with people and you're going to be totally transactional and you're going to be that salesperson, it's not going to work. Even the people who are sponsors, I told them, specifically, when they ask me, they're like, well, how do I approach? I go, look, you're going to be in the room with people, you're going to hear, you're going to see. The reality is just get to know them, network with them. And then, like anything else, what you're doing is you say, look, we realize you're in a quality environment. I'm here to give you a high level overview. And all I ask for is that if you're somewhat interested, give me 45 minutes of your time when we get off the ship. And that works like a charm for both
Absolutely.
sponsors and people, because it's you're developing relationships. And much like the concept of VIP versus PIP,
Hmm.
you want you're gonna you're gonna buy from someone, having been with Walmart, HP, on the security side, you're going to buy from people you like. And even if you're not going to necessarily buy from them, you're going to interact with them, get them the introductions. Because when I'm in rooms, if I like a vendor and I am not affiliated with them in any way, shape, or form, but if I have a friend who is talking and says, gee, I really need something to deal with like LLMs, as an example, I'm going to say, you know what? I don't have any relationship, but I really recommend you look at those people.
Hmm.
And that's the type of environment and friendships you want to foster. You don't want to be that salesperson like, look, I know this company has a decent product. I'm going to recommend you go, but God, just expect the cringe.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because, well, we started hosting in-person dinners a while back, and I always thought when people get in this kind of in-person environment, they'll be talking about latest exploits or latest technology, or I don't know, threat landscape, or this vendor or that vendor. Well, it obviously it's part of the conversation, but people talk about, kids and travel and
Mhm.
hobbies and sports sometimes, or um, so goes to your point that if you treat people as humans first and you really don't make it transactional, it gets you so much further than if you look at my demo of my product. It's just people have no patience for that.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, with my current company, we went through our first CRO. Now we have a great CRO, but the first CRO was very almost like, get them to sign, get them to. I'm like, no, I'll quit before I do any of that crap. And and it just didn't work. But it just works again where you have somebody who you can relate to, who's going to be there saying, look, you understand it's my position to pitch you.
Hmm.
It is just a given, and that's part of the game. I provide value to you because if I have something that's valuable, you will it will help your organization. So I
Hmm.
want to show it to you. And on the other hand, I wouldn't waste your time if I didn't think I could possibly help you. And then again, it's like the relationship where, even, and I tell people, like, there's one time where I had somebody, and like my second company I started, ironically, because I got called by this one company out of the blue. It was like Israeli Chemical Limited or something, wanted me to come in and do a security awareness presentation to their team. And I was like, okay, sure. And it ended up being my first client for my new company at the time,
Oh wow.
Securamentum, and which focused on the human aspects of cybersecurity. And then what happened was I got there, I'm like, really enthusiastic and everything, and I'm talking to the CISO of the organization. They're like, yeah, well, so Steve has really wanted to be here. And he's like, yeah, he's the person who recommended you. I'm like, oh, really? I don't remember. He's like, yeah, the last time he saw you speak here in St. Louis and said you were really good, and that's why we had you in. I'm like, I don't remember actually ever speaking in St. Louis before, but sure. And it's like, and that was 7 years ago, 7 years before. And
Well,
that's
yeah.
a good relationship.
So if you focus on giving and without asking, it's karma. It's going to come back. So it's sad to me that 99% of people view networking as they look at the person next to on a dinner table or across, and they're like, well, what can you give me? What can I get out of you? And it's such a wrong-headed way of approaching networking. It's really, how can I help you? And
Well,
no agenda. I'm not looking to do business with you. I just want to understand what you're dealing with, and if there's any way I can help. Not transactional. I'm not expecting anything in return. You do this enough times, miracles. There's no doubt in my mind that miracles will happen. I'm just surprised that so few people get that.
yeah, I wish again it would be like, I joke, like I gave a presentation called at the Cyber Marketing Society called Leave Me the Fuck Alone.
I
And
remember.
yeah, literally, leave me the fuck alone. I think you can, buy, buy the, the recordings or something.
Well, actually, for members, it's available. So Gianna, they post in
Yeah.
the portal, so you actually can see all that.
Yeah. So if you're a member, you can see my recording on Leave Me the Fuck Alone, because I discuss a lot of my time as being chief security architect at Walmart. Believe me, I could never say that while I was at Walmart. But the reality was everybody was treating you like, the fundamental issue was everybody is treating like these CISOs as prey. They're treating them as something to hunt down. Like, it's actually true. You met Adriana and she will vouch for this. There was one time I was at RSA while I was with Walmart, and like there was something out of the corner of my eye. So it's like some people moving really fast, going down another row and everything like that. And then all of a sudden it's like, like I'm like walking down the aisle, and then all of a sudden it's like these people are coming up the other. It's like, oh, Ira, what a surprise to run into you. I'm like, do I know you? And like literally they were like, they saw me because, and like they hunted me down. And that's the thing when you talk about sometimes where like some of these elevated CISOs, like one of the reasons that these CISOs frankly like the caste system in some ways is that they are not hunted down and treated like prey. So it's not necessarily just kind of like, hey, give me the shrimp, like the grilled shrimp instead of the small, crappy, deep fried popcorn shrimp type of thing events. It's the fact that, you feel more comfortable without these people trying to hunt you down. And, so that's what the presentation was about, essentially, where, when you treat people like prey, you're going to get treated like a pest to be eradicated. And so, there's a lot going on. Like, are you treating do you have your BDRs like treating LinkedIn like a cesspool where they're just like, okay, programming campaigns to go out to people who will never, ever, ever respond to you? Because we realize that most of these campaigns are automated. If they're not automated, these people wouldn't send you a connection request, if their life depended on it in any other circumstance.
Yeah.
And
No, I
like,
told you the story that one of the Finnian members is a CISO at a prominent company. His wife would get a call on Sunday morning, and she would pick up her cell phone and it's like, "Honey, this is for you." And it was a SDR who found her personal cell phone number to reach to him to book a demo. It's like, I'll never ever in the rest of my life I'll never do business with that
Mhm.
particular vendor. But it just shows the desperation that and perverse set of incentives that the cybersecurity, some of the cybersecurity companies are dealing with. They just go quarter by quarter, and it just creates this behavior that just absolutely makes no sense.
Well, I'm actually not even sure if it's there or some people just are I was gonna say fucking ass. Well, I just did. Just outright fucking assholes that think they're gonna get the trophy. It's not even about transaction, it's about their own pride. Like, I remember when I can't when I was, again, with Walmart, because I would get harassed constantly, there were, like, some vendors that called me on my cell phone. And well, these were people who were trying to organize a webinar for Palo Alto. And I'm like, no. I saw it. Well, and usually I won't answer the phone unless I saw it, but it was from like the UK. So I'm like, maybe it's legitimate. But anyway, so somebody from like, you want me on a webinar? No. Like, you want me part of a business, because they just wanted to have the person from Walmart on to tell all the other possible attendees I'm like, no, I have no interest in being on I'm not great at panels because if I'm kind of very opinionated. And when you're too opinionated on a panel, it can turn adversarial, and I don't like that. And I really just hate being on a panel, a round table, sitting around, even worse for me most of the time. But, so then these people, I'm like, no. Then they tried calling me again. I blocked the number. Then I got something on WhatsApp from the blocked number. Then I ignored that. Then I had one of the people who worked for the company contacting me via WhatsApp. Then I blocked that. Then another person from the company, from their personal phone, tried to call me via WhatsApp, to the point where I just, contacted the Palo Alto CMO and said, "Hey, you really want to do business? This ain't it." And they had no idea what this group was trying to do for this not even important webinar or roundtable at the end of the day.
Well, bedside manners go a long way. But sorry, just kind of to go back to the cruise con. So it's from what I understand, you're mixing networking and thought leadership with pleasure. So can you talk a little bit about the structure? How do you mix? I know at sea, in port, sessions, having a good time. How does it? What's the look and feel of it?
So I created the event based upon my experience in going to conferences for more than 3 decades. And what did I want as an attendee? Because the attendee experience has to come first.
Hmm.
And so what works? You know what? On a cruise like this, really, we have a welcome reception. We made sure, it's more expensive, but we made sure we had a welcome reception and a closed off, bar or whatever the facility was, where people could get together, chat with each other, see old friends, get introduced to other people,
Hmm.
where everybody's just getting together and so on. And just, chatting with, the free drinks and everything like that for the event. And then that's the welcome. Then we had the, CISO Ask Me Anything panel, Fortune 200 CISOs. I still have the A-list people there,
Hmm.
to make sure, because people want to learn from them and make sure that they come and network with people. So, we had that for the networking. Then people ended up just breaking up, and frankly, they just went as groups into like the little bars and sat down with each other, even when they didn't know each other. For the next event, as a heads up, we're giving everybody wristbands. So even if they're not wearing the badges, if they want to network, they'll be wearing a wristband so they know who they can approach, who they can't, because you're
Hmm.
on a fairly a ship that's not devoted to us.
Hmm.
And then so the day at sea, next day is the day at sea, or yeah, basically the day at sea is when we start the events. And so yeah, relatively early in the morning, like 9 a.m. And we get together. There's a long lunch break for people to go out and network with each other during lunch, come back, have the talks, and then so on, and obviously do dinner when we get to a port, because usually we have at least 4 or 5 day, well, minimum 4 day cruises, so that we have day at sea, like CruiseCon West, day at sea, day in port, day at sea, and then come back. What
Hmm.
happens is, so the networking reception, we're there for the event on the day at sea. Then we get to the port where we have group excursions that people help, or we organize so that people can go out together and network, and then hopefully offset some of the costs, because vendors are helping to support that. And so that they can get to know each other via this way, as well as they're going out enjoying the Mexican ruins or whatever the case may be. And
Hmm.
then the following day again is a day at sea where we go ahead and get together as for the thought leadership, have enough time for networking in between sessions, have lunch break, again, things like that. Then we have the closing reception where we get together and again, exchange information. But frankly, people started their own WhatsApp groups and signal channels all on their own. And they were putting up the barcodes for everybody to go ahead and scan to join the groups. And we stayed together, or the group's been active, and we had a reunion at RSA last week as well. So, but anyway, all that kind of comes together, and a lot of that, frankly, is mirrored on like the Team 8 Wing Capital events where people get together at these retreats in the middle of nowhere.
Hmm.
Mostly it's designed for Fortune 100 CISO type people, but it's a good place for, again, people to go. The same model, I use that for CruiseCon because it's made a little bit retreatish style. Because
Hmm.
yeah, we have A-list content. Like we have content that again we're partnering with TechStrong, and the videos are, I should say, October 22nd is CruiseCon Virtual. Partner with TechStrong, we're taking their videos. I think it's free, and they're putting them up because A-list content. Admiral Rogers, awesome human being, was our keynote speaker for the first event.
Hmm.
You know, and anyway, sorry, I could go on for a while,
No,
but
no, no, it's good. And I know you had David Cross on the first CruiseCon as well. We actually just hosted an event with him in Seattle. And so the West Coast, how is it going to be bigger in terms of number of guests, in terms of the
well,
scope?
the West Coast is actually going to be a little bit smaller because what happened was we started the first event and
Hmm.
then we saw the way registrations were going. And we're
Hmm.
like, seems like this is going to go because I started this as just on a whim. Like it's my passion. I want to see if I could do this and bring it together. Then it started to go, and then we found a good cruise, going out of LA in October.
Hmm.
And the thing is that, we wasn't sure because we don't want to cannibalize the other events that are going to be held within, like reasonable period of time. And we thought, okay, we got the full conference center for it's not the Anthem. I was on that, the quantum of it's quantum on the quantum. We're going to be talking quantum security. And so anyway, so the quantum has a relatively small event, even though it's a much larger ship than what we were on the first cruise.
Hmm.
And so we decided, well, we got that. It's not going to be as large, but it's going to be a nice, tight group of people as well. And so we're going to be able to go ahead, have the networking, have everything going on in this case, it'll be probably about a third smaller than the first group that came on board, but we'll have a larger one. And then also another thing, we found most people who attended CruiseCon, the first event in February, which was held out of the Orlando area, they were mostly from the East Coast and Central region.
Hmm.
And since the other reason for putting this in Los Angeles is
The
that
West Coast people.
the West Coast people make it convenient for them.
Yeah. And did you tell me that you're planning one in Europe as well later on?
Yeah, we have CruiseCon Europe. That'll be in July 2026. You have
Mm,
to plan these far out to get the facilities, but that'll be awesome. We already have some outstanding speakers lined up for that.
interesting. And is it going to be Mediterranean or North
Now, this
Sea?
one will be so the other part of it, frankly, is making this accessible, like I mentioned, and keeping the cost down. The
Hmm.
cost to do, in order to get 2 days at sea, as well as, we needed 2 days at sea and getting the event facilities. It turned out that we'd have to have a 7-day cruise. It would have to be on the large ships, which are much more expensive. So it was either a 5-day cruise out of Southampton, England, for roughly, people can get on for about $1,500, I think it is,
Hmm.
compared to like a $3,000 minimum price. to get on a 7-day cruise going to the Met. Not that I wouldn't love that, but at the same time, it would just be less accessible,
Yeah.
and we need to experiment because getting people out for 7 days means 9, because day there, day back, all that
Mhm.
sort of stuff. So a
Certainly.
5-day cruise is a little bit more practical and cheaper.
Well, maybe North Sea for 2026 and Venice and Greece and Turkey for the following year, maybe.
That is in our thought. We have to, once we have success, we can then start to mirror that, and we are planning far enough out so that we'll begin to
Really.
see how people are registering and maybe see who our registrants are, and then get some other people, because when we leave from the Med, people would have to make their way, for example, to Barcelona,
Hmm.
maybe Athens. While I love those cities, there's not a strong cybersecurity population
Hmm.
compared to Southampton, England, drawing from like the UK, Paris, and other places like that are
Hmm.
infinitely closer.
Interesting. Well, all right. I know you're extremely generous. You offered Athenian members a 10% discount. Obviously, once this episode goes live, we'll share the link and the
Mhm.
code. Thank you for that. I hope anyone who's listening will join, because I think in this world, yes, there is room for RSA and there is room for Black Hat, but increasingly there's room for more private and intimate gatherings for practitioners to network and exchange thought leadership and make connections that are, quite frankly, not even possible at events, at larger scale events and major conferences like RSA or Black Hat.
Yeah, and then also something I wanted to add, the type of content we're having is more akin, for the most part. We are actually planning for like the 2026 event on how to get more of the junior population in so that we could really, accomplish the goal. But in the meantime, even if we get the junior people in, we're having presentations that are actually designed more for the like the Fortune 100 C-level retreats. Like,
Hmm.
for example, we have Chris Cochran talking about leadership, and specifically something for how to go ahead and really get leadership. I have Tracy Salea, who's my co-author on You Can't Stop Stupid, and she is speaking on project management for CISOs, because that's an underappreciated skill. I mean, I think that fundamentally project management is what makes an average cybersecurity program an outstanding cybersecurity program. So we're having these type of sessions which are not normally in like a smaller CISO type of environment, but we're having these things for like the elite CISOs,
Hmm.
on like the content for elite CISOs made available to anyone so that they could see how more effectively to run their programs.
Yeah.
And if they're junior, how to start talking intelligently when they start getting these interviews. Like when they were asked, how would you take my cybersecurity program to the next level? Saying, hey, you know what I would try to do is I would, mature our project management processes to ensure we have repeatability, monitoring, status of everything. I
Hmm.
might incorporate data science, not just in AI, because a lot of people implement AI in tools, but they don't implement. I hate using AI, my Dr. Evil AI to get in there, but but to implement data science and how I run my cybersecurity program as a whole.
Hmm.
And so to get this and get people thinking about how can they be a better CISO, but how can they mature the programs they have, or what can make them excel if they're rising to that level as well.
Well, it kind of goes back to your original premise of democratizing the conference experience for practitioners. You're
Mhm.
creating TED Talk level quality of content, but then you're making it available for people who are attending and possibly for those who are attending virtually. So it's actually, I think, an extremely compelling proposition for those getting
Mhm.
involved. And for those who want to check it out, is it cruise.con? Is that
Cruisecon.com.
CruiseCon? That's right.
Yeah. I,
Cruisecon.com.
I paid a lot for that domain. I'm a big believer. You have to first, before you think of something, you have to think of a really cool name.
Yes.
And then you have to make sure you can own the domain of that really cool name.
It is very, because I know there's a handful of other, there was Richmond Cruises or something along those lines that used to do that for different functions.
Mhm.
Um, so it's kudos on getting the domain. It certainly
Yeah.
makes life a little bit more easy for you.
Yeah, after the expense, and then it was a domain that was tied to a lot of, let's just say, illicit activity for a
Oh,
while. Well, what happens is you have somebody who gets the domain because they want to start something, and then when you sit, it's almost like an interesting case study. But then what happens is if you don't maintain it, people start taking your domain and sending out malware or use the domain name for for
mm,
malware, for spams and stuff, and it gets you on all the block lists.
I
So I
see.
had to take the domain. I bought the domain for a premium because I had to get it before I announced the conference, but still, I really needed it because I already had the branding ready to go. But then I had to go through like getting it unblocked in a variety of places and so on.
Certainly.
So,
Well, that's where having a cybersecurity background helps because you probably have access to all those spam houses and all those
yeah.
organizations that track that. It's awesome. Well, all right. I know we're coming up on time. This is great. Uh, Thank you for sharing
Hmm.
your insights. We didn't have time to unpack some of your ideas about or your experience at RSA. Maybe if you have time, I'd love to schedule like a follow up chat.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'll quickly summarize it, but and just first off, I'll say go to cruisecon.com and enter Affinia 10 for your
Mhm.
10%
Thank
discount.
you.
And do it quick just because we are going to raise prices. Unfortunately, the first time we did not plan on like encouraging people to register
Hmm.
early through offering them cheaper prices, and it led to such logistic nightmares for us. So I now realize why people do that. But anyway, for RSA as a whole, again, for me, it's always been the people. And, because content, some of it was better than others, but at the end of the day, even with the cast system in place, luckily
Hmm.
I can travel between the casts. It
Hmm.
sounds so bad, but and it's like, that's why I go to the event. It's like even if I wasn't speaking, I would try to go just because this is where my friends end up.
Exactly. No, that makes a lot of sense. Cruisecon.com, Affinia 10. So that's where it's at. And by the way, when are prices going up? So just so people know.
Prices go up. I think we just raised prices on May 1st, so they'll be up by June 30th.
Okay, got it.
So before June 30th, if not before, get in there, or else it's at least 200 more expensive.
Sounds good. We'll encourage people to do so. All right. Thank you so much for your time. This was awesome.
No, thanks for having me. I actually enjoy it because we spoke about a lot of things that don't get spoken about, but really need to.
Well, and again, encouraging people to not be transactional. I think it's I will die on this hill. I think and treating people as humans and playing the long game, not being transactional, and approaching networking as a way to give, not as a way to take. It just
Hmm.
I'll die on this hill. I'll be talking until
Yeah, I
I'm
mean, I hate to sound so corny, but just be Bill and Ted. Just try to be excellent to each other.
exactly. All right. Thank you so much. That was great.
Th- Thank you.